strobe effect today. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Today I'd like to go deep yet once again. We'll see how deep though. I want to talk about a few concepts that I actually think all point to the same thing. In fact, I might say that a lot of our Buddhist concepts point to the same thing. And we're going to find out if you agree or not. And these concepts, in no particular order, are interdependence, interbeing, interpenetration, interconnectedness. Those are the only four that I came up with that are pretty similar right there. And they all have different definitions, of course. Interdependence, depending on each other, or two things that depend on each other. Interconnectedness, two things that are connected. Could be through a dependence that they have on each other or something else. Interpenetration, two things that penetrate each other. That's a little bit more abstract. How do they penetrate each other? Through their connectedness? I don't know. Or two things that are interbeing. They're being two things together. Just to be clear, it can be more than two things as well. There's a lot of tease apart from those words. But I want to focus on a similar idea. So I don't want to, if I use these words interchangeably, it's on purpose. It's not on accident. And I want to focus on all those words pointing at the same idea that we're going to talk about. I'm certain to throw in some other terms as well. I'm going to start with some words from Gautama Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. And there's some vocabulary in this reading that I'm going to give too that I want to preface for you. The first one is Tathagata, which some people are not familiar with, and some people are, because we've talked about it at length in some of our classes. And this is a word that the Buddha used to refer to himself, or other people who have thus come, they say, or transcended the beings. Maybe people that have awakened, if you want to put it that way. So Tathagata. And another term you're going to hear, a mouthful, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. And I left it in this sutra for the reason, because I think it's an interesting word for you to learn. It's three words, actually. Anuttara means ultimate, supreme, unsurpassed. Okay, Anuttara, unsurpassed, the top. Second word here, Samyak, means complete or perfect. So we have unsurpassed perfectness. The real top of the mountain here type stuff. The last word, Sambodhi, you hear that Bodhi word, means enlightenment, or in this sense it might mean the supreme wisdom or something. So this word, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, really means like the ultimate, supreme, perfect enlightenment, or wisdom, okay? Understanding, maybe you want to put it. And those of you in our Diamond Sutra class might find this one familiar. This is the words of the Buddha as he talks to his disciple Subhuti. If you put your hands in Hapjung. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata attained anything by Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi? Does the Tathagata in fact expound a Dharma? Subhuti replied, as I understand the teaching of the Buddha, there is no definitive Dharma called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Nor is there any definitive Dharma which the Tathagata can expound. Why is this? The Dharma which the Tathagata expounds is inconceivable and beyond words. It is neither Dharma nor not Dharma. All of the saints and sages vary only in their mastery of this. So ends the reading. And by the way, the Diamond Sutra, which we're studying on Tuesday nights, if anybody wants to come, 7:30 at the temple here. And the Flower Ornament Sutra are two very important sutras in our lineage of Zen here, of Buddhism, in the Tago order. The Dharma is inconceivable and beyond words. It is neither Dharma nor not Dharma. And the sages vary only in their mastery of this. They only vary in their mastery of understanding these terms, these teachings. Why is the Dharma beyond words? How can it be inconceivable if this is what he taught, what the Buddha taught? It's like he's setting us up to fail or something here. Well, let's assume we're on that spectrum of understanding, of mastery of this. We are the saints and sages, understanding this sutra, this teaching. I'm going to start at the very low end of understanding, maybe where I am. It seems illogical. How can something be not and not? How can it be not this and also not the opposite of this? It kind of is illogical. If you remember my last talk about paradoxes in Buddhism, we could see through this though. This is a tool. This is a tool for understanding, right? This is a skillful teaching. What's meant by Dharma? Perhaps the key word here is actually the definitive Dharma. Thank you. Maybe the definitive Dharma is what he's talking about. This thing that we try and nail down is this is the teaching. That Dharma cannot be expounded. That Dharma can't be put into words. We could call this the big D Dharma, capital Dharma, big D. Are you mad? I stole this from her, by the way. Are you mad? You might call him. All of the best teachings come from you guys, by the way. Not from me, from you guys. Big D Dharma, capital D, I'm going to call it capital D. You might think of this as the Dharmakaya. This is a word for it. This is the body of teachings, or the essence of the Dharma. The body of teachings is probably the best way to put it. It's not able to manifest itself in words. It's too infinite, too big, right? Maybe too big for even a single mind. Too much to pin down. When we realize this, we can let go of our ego and the sense of this world that we have and all these stories we tell ourselves about what this is and the Dharma, the purest truth. Everything we think about it, let go of it. What we think about Buddhism, let go. But then what of the little d Dharma? What about lowercase Dharma? What about the one that's written in 80,000 sutras in Buddhism, huh? Why write them if the words don't do it justice? Where do the Zen masters go when they understand this truth? When we let go of all of our ideas about Dharma? Why the hell are you listening to me talk then, right? What are these words? Let's listen to it again. The Dharma which the Tathagata expounds is inconceivable and beyond words. It is neither Dharma nor not Dharma. Dharma nor not Dharma. Not this and not this. Interesting. I'm thinking of a number. It's not 1, and it's not 1. Anybody guess the number? Does that make any sense? So our realization about the essence of this Dharma, it's beyond words, is pretty great. We can take that around to our friends and impress them. Ooh, it's beyond words, inconceivable. Might even impress some scholars out there. Oh, you really understand it. But is it practical? Can we put that into action? What does this do for us? Let's go back in time, around the 1200s in Korea. There's a very famous monk that you all should know, named Jinul. Trying to say it like Jinul. Jinul. He studies all of the Tripitaka, all of the texts of Buddhism. He goes around looking for enlightened masters, and he can't find any enlightened masters from all of his learning. This is a time in Korea, by the way, in which schools were very divided between doctrinal schools, think of it textual schools, scholarly schools, and meditative schools. Call that Kyo and Sun, just so you know, good terms to learn. And Chunil came to the realization that maybe there's a middle path between the doctrinal schools and the meditative schools. Here's a few of his words I'm going to read for you. And this is pretty pithy, so focus, meditate right now. The diligent practitioner who is cultivating his mind should first, by means of the path of patriarchs, become cognizant of the fact that the fundamental subtlety of his own mind cannot be captured by words and letters. Then, using the texts, he should discern that the essence and function of his mind are none other than the nature and characteristics of the realm of reality. Call this the Dharma Dhatu. Then the virtuous power of the interpenetration of phenomena with phenomena and the efficacious function of the wisdom and compassion that are gained from an awareness of the sameness and essence of all things will no longer be external concerns or merely conceptual theories. And I'm going to tease that apart a little bit more for you. This is a little different take, but in the same vein of what we learned from the sutra we read earlier. Before we focused on the external Dharma, the things that we were intaking from the world. Now the focus is on our mind, which cannot be captured by words. This vocab word Dharma Dhatu is very similar. It's like the essence of the Dharma. And I purposefully pulled this out as contrary to what we were talking about before. Maybe this like ethereal Dharma, teachings or something. This is very real, this essence of the Dharma here. This is that from which everything arises and returns. The interpenetration of phenomena with phenomena, he writes. This makes this kind of very abstract idea of non-dualism and of how do I want to put it succinctly? Of not being able to put things into words. It's a very abstract idea that we put out here. And this is taking it and putting it very realistically in our lives. How is this happening? Seeing this realm clearly leads us to the next step towards our mastery of the Diamond Sutra in that chapter that we read. The wisdom that will cut through our ignorance like a diamond sword. That's why it's named the Diamond Sutra. When we see this interpenetration of phenomena, as Chinul says, and when we use this functioning, note functioning, using it, wisdom and compassion that we gain from our meditations, these won't be theories anymore. He says these will no longer be external concerns, merely conceptual theories. When we're seeing the interpenetration of things, and we're pairing that with our wisdom, with our compassion that we're gaining in our meditations, now we're able to put these things into action, so to speak. By the way, Chinul is responsible for developing many of the practices we still do today. A lot of the chanting, meditating, reading, talks, and things like that. One of the fathers of Korean Buddhism here. Very important figure if you want to look him up. He set out to unite multiple different types of teachings in Korea, and it's kind of the same thing that we're doing here today, or that I'm trying to do with you. The fruit of uniting a lot of teachings that leads us here is that we're looking at the Buddha Dharma from limited minds. We're limited to the understanding of our mind, right? And we need to get out of our mind. Almost like uniting multiple minds. Interconnecting our minds, so to speak. Seeing that we're existing in the same places. Seeing this idea of interpenetration clearly, of this inconceivability of the Dharma clearly, isn't a result, it's a step in this multi-step path, multi-discipline path. I'm going to read you another pithy statement from another very famous Korean monk you all should know. About 600 years before Chinul, though. This is like the 600 Common Era or so in Korea. His name is Won Hyo. And he learned and taught and embodied, really, the same sense of interbeing between people. He's famous in that he never actually, I don't think he made it to China. He was on his way to China to learn more about the Flower Ornament Sutra, and came back, and he was a monk, and then he ended up living with the lay members of the community and laughing and dancing and crying with them. And this is what he's famous for, really being with the people, right? Kind of like we all are here. He was also alive during rifts in Korean Buddhism, very similar to what this was like, multiple different schools that were all separate and not united. And he had this same desire to unite people. Listen to what he writes. The attitude of staying in a deep valley while avoiding great mountains, or loving emptiness while hating existence, is just like the attitude of going into a forest while avoiding the trees. But one should be aware of the fact that green and blue are identical in essence. And ice and water are identical in origin. A single mirror reflects myriad forms. And parted waters will perfectly intermingle once they are reunited. So these words about interpenetration have pages and pages and volumes and libraries of exegesis about them. I'm not trying to do that right now. Walking in the steps of Chinul and Wonhyo, though, hearkening back to those words of the Buddha that I read out of the Diamond Sutra, written about the same time as Wonhyo, or maybe a little bit before, too, by the way. This starts the golden era of Zen, around that time, just so you guys know. We can see clearly that not Dharma and not Dharma, it's not what we confine it in our heads. It's also not the opposite of what we confine it to. Hope that makes a little sense, at this point at least. It's not what we confine it to in our heads, and it's not the opposite of what we confine it to in our heads. It's not in our heads. That makes sense? It's kind of like, imagine you're trying to get somewhere and you're looking for directions. And where do we look? We look, well, first at the phone and follow the map and the words that it says on the map. And we look at the street signs and we look at the buildings. And then just something clicks in your head, and now the street signs are arrows. And the phone is just arrows, and the street has arrows pointing you everywhere to go. Except the arrows don't point anywhere, except back at you, in this example. We might become paralyzed from addressing this as some sort of paradox. This Dharma, not Dharma thing, sometimes it can be like a philosophical challenge for us or something. But that's not the way to view these teachings. This isn't analytical philosophy. Moreover, and what I typically do, you might as well, we could leave the fun of these questions here in the Dharma talk, or in the texts, jump in our cars, hit the road, leave these teachings about interpenetration, non-duality, the self, to this, and go on. Well, let's try and make it a little bit more real. Okay. Interconnectedness, interdependence, interbeing. It's all very real. Very real. Not just up here, very real. Let's look at it logically, finally. We are all here by some sort of miracle of life, are we not? Because some people cared enough to create this place, Muddy Waters Inn. Because some man went through a lifetime of struggles, of learning and devotion to find this path, and then decided to share it with others. Along the way, that could have been disrupted at any point, right? Very lucky that that happened. But also because of a multitude of other factors were present. This building exists. Somebody built it. It's been taken care of by countless people before we were here. Who knows? It's been fixed with materials. Those materials cost money. That required work. Those materials had to be sold, which requires shops. Those shops only exist because of a lot of workers. The material had to be mined or cultivated by hard labor. Those materials had to be moved between workers each step of the way. And the people that used those materials to maintain our temple had to get them here. They used cars and trucks that have a plethora of moving parts and have been engineered over hundreds of years, if not more, and refined by hundreds and thousands of persons working thousands and millions of hours, probably more, that's a guess. And the parts are mined from minerals all over the earth, and the cars are maintained by people right next door to you. And the dinosaurs from 65 million years ago are combusting at incredible rates to spin your crankshaft unless you're driving an electric car. And the roads we drive were trails once blazed by Native Americans hundreds of years ago. And the roads are maintained sometimes, and the maintenance comes from all of our taxes and the government that decides where the money is needed, and the government wouldn't exist without governments and societies of past, and some luck. And, well, to cut to the chase, we wouldn't exist at all if it wasn't for the sun and 6 inches of topsoil. Tell me that's not real. That's very real. So yesterday we found out that my fiance Coral's niece just had an episode where she became frightened and had some kind of mental snap. She's always been a special needs child, but this was new and very scary and very abnormal. She started acting weird, taking on and off her clothes all the time, acting like many different personalities, and hasn't slept in over 2 days. Obviously, this seems like some kind of psychiatric disorder that just sprung upon her. It's engulfed her full force, almost out of nowhere. We don't know how. And not knowing is the worst part. Very scary. Incredible stress. For us also, being thousands of miles apart, can't even imagine for her mother and the family that's there. A lot of stress worrying about things that you don't understand and can't control. Isn't that the story of life? How can you be happy in a situation like this? Why would you want to? But then are we choosing to be miserable? There are people in this Sangha that are suffering from illness, severe and subsiding ones. Some are going through it, hoping to come out stronger on the other side. Soon, hopefully. Some are learning to deal with new realities and changes that it requires. Some of us, and I mean us, are going through terrible things. Relationships, divorces. Some of us are working dead-end jobs. Some of us have car troubles. Some of us are depressed for no reason, and some are depressed and don't even know it. Still, others are growing and learning from their mistakes and optimistic about the future. Some are starting new paths. Some have just found Buddhism and are excited to be following this path. Hopefully you at the end of this, I don't know. Some are meeting new people, falling in love. Some are watching their children grow and become what they always wanted, what they always hoped, making them proud. Some people just got a new car. Some people had a great breakfast. Some people are really, really happy right now and content for no apparent reason. And how is it that we come to this place together and share sympathies? How is it that we can be in such different areas and still connect with each other? Well, I understand interconnectedness because I am He, as you are He, as you are me, and we are all together. I am the walrus. Yeah. That's not the end of the talk, don't worry. Kind of hippie 60s twist on it or whatever. I don't find that very helpful, actually. It was a good joke, but I don't find that very helpful. I'm He, and you're and me, and we're together, right? That's not what this is about. That's a surface understanding of it. This isn't the masterful understanding of it. Actually, maybe when we get to it, maybe that is, I don't know. That could be the master's understanding of it. Let's look at this idea, interbeing still, through the lens of what we discussed. Every minute, every second, everything is interconnected to every other thing. So what? Won Hyo taught us when the waters part, it feels like two separate things, but they always go back together. They're always one thing. So one, it's not two separate things. We aren't separate, we are together. Chinel taught us that even though the mind and text aren't captured by words, they can still be awakened. we can still be awakened. By integrating our practices, we can make sense of these concepts. Maybe not sense like logical sense that we want to do, but we can still have an effect. We can be affected by these processes. And the Buddha taught us directly in that first reading that the dualistic mind is not the way. It's not this, it's not that, it's not that. It's not in your mode of thinking. A lot of times we latch on. I got it, right? That's not it. Doesn't matter. That mode of thinking, right there, this one. It's not that mode of thinking. We swing one way and we swing another way. Oh, I was wrong here, but now I see the light. This is the light, right? Until that light fails us. Maybe this is the light. And you know you're not swinging back and forth. You're swinging like this and that way. And 360 circles and everything. And I'm not going to queasy on it, but first sermon that the Buddha gave in Deer Park after his enlightenment, I believe it was the 5 monks, 5 of his companions that he was traveling with. What was the first thing he taught after he awakened? Middle path. First sentence almost, middle path. I went to this extreme and I went to that extreme, and it's not on either of those extremes. It's down the middle. Also the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path he taught in that sermon. When we really internalize this, I like that word internalize, because it's not like, oh, I put it up here. It's like, it flows within me. It's that Dharmakaya goes through you. When we really internalize this idea, beyond words, beyond experience, we don't have a disconnect anymore. We don't try and balance our happy thoughts against another person's sadness. There is no us versus them. Sometimes we think of people we don't understand and it makes us feel uncomfortable. We think of people that are alien. We really don't understand where that's coming from. We don't have that sense of inner being. I'm going to name off a few key characters in our world that you've probably interacted with before, without saying any names. Children starving across the world. Close your eyes. This might help. Everybody close your eyes. Children starving across the world. Suburban children playing in the yard in the evening. Drug addicts. Racists. Rich, happy housewives. Foreign heads of state. Astronauts. Tigers in the zoo. Starving fish that swallowed too much plastic. Coyotes feasting on a fresh kill. A rock. You can open your eyes now. Can we see ourselves in any of these beings? Do we have relationships to any of these beings? Do we feel like we exist with these things? We could say, sure, we understand it up here, but do we really understand it in here? In here. How do you know when somebody's sad? What do you do when somebody's sad? A lot of times I don't know what to do. It's very hard sometimes to know what to do. We don't feel like we know them, like we are there with them. I'm thinking that maybe if we pair our sense, if we develop this sense of interconnectedness, interbeing, and we pair this with our wisdom that we already have, that we develop as well, actively, in our compassion, and we let go of all these things that we think, that we know what to do in a situation like that. What do you want when you're sad? A hug? Do you want to cry? Do you want to talk? Well, the next time you're here and you're sad, I'm going to give you a hug. I'm going to let you cry and cry with you and talk with you. Or just let you talk. Whatever feels good. We might not be Zen masters. Some of you, I think, are pretty close. I know you will. But me, I'm not a Zen master. But I'm also not a Zen master. We are all dependent on each other. And if you disagree with me, I'm going to fight you. That's the end of the Dharma talk. Thank you very much.